So karibuni sana. First of all, let me introduce and welcome you by stating the objective of this session. I know you must have seen the title or the topic of the this webinar today, and you're going to explore how we can be able to build some thriving mechanisms to be able to overcome challenges for a lot of us who are in toxic and very tough work environment. I've got a lot of stories before today, and I really hope you guys will open up and share some of those stories, because in there is where we are going to find the solutions, and probably we are going to inspire someone today. So welcome on board. I quickly want to say within the next 1.5 hours, we are going to have an engaging session. If you have a question, feel free to use the chat. Feel free also to stop me also and ask what you want if it is something that you feel needs to be addressed at that point. Otherwise, we'll have a session of about some few minutes to address your questions, but keep them up on the chat. So without further ado, I want to welcome my panelists. Started by the one and only moderator of choice, Grace Nzula. Najua mnamuona hapo, ako hapa kwa face yangu vizuri sana. And I'm telling you, I must admit, challenge yenye niko nayo leo is to moderate this session the way it's supposed to be, because it's not easy. Na tuko na expert mwenyewe hapa. But isn't it good to have the best in the room? Kikosea unaambiwa hapo. Yes. So karibu sana, Grace Nzula. I want also to recognize the presence of Jill Masitsa, a great, fantastic friend of mine. We've worked in different platforms to inspire, and I'm so sure she's come today loaded with some insights, as well as share some stories on how we can be able to navigate the topic of today. So Jill, karibu sana. Paul, I know you have some challenge. There you have Jill. We have a challenge logging in. I hope you're in, but if you haven't, I'll try to be able to help you in a few. Paul, yes, Paul is here. Yeah, karibu sana. So there we have all our panelists on board, and I want to quickly just give them about 5 or so minutes to introduce themselves, and then we will proceed. And I want to welcome Jill. You can quickly introduce yourself and have a minute to inspire us from where you come from.
Okay, so thank you so much for even inviting me to speak. I'm not very good at speaking, so I'm learning to get into this space as a matter of necessity. But my name is Jill Masitsa. I've been in HR for 15 years now. And a lot of that HR experience has been in leadership. Currently, apart from what I do on a daily basis, I serve as a HR director for 2 entities, and in an executive capacity, which means I do not have to do HR on a day-to-day basis. So my main job that I now currently do, I run a social enterprise called Zulax Limited. So Zulax Limited is a social entrepreneurship hub. We do a lot of things, HR consulting, construction, and it's going to sound like a lot, but we do quite a bit of work in empowering women and just getting women to C-suite and getting women into entrepreneurship, basically expanding the space for us to get more job opportunities that are able to accommodate more empathetic ways of doing business. And I think I'm invited to this forum because of the passion that I have to change the country by creating tables for us, as opposed to asking for seats in tables that might not welcome us in the best ways. So thank you so much, Damaris. Looking forward to learn, even as I share my experiences. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. We are truly honored to have you today here on this webinar. As you can all hear, my colleagues on this call, we have a lot to learn within the next 1 or so hour. I want to bring in Grace. Grace.
Yes, Damaris. Good morning. And it's really good to see you, Damaris. It's good to see you, Jill. And it's good to be here with everyone who's on the call. It's an honor to be here this morning, and I'm very, very excited. It's a bit cold in Nairobi, but at least I have a reason to just sit here and look like I am not just lying around. So my name is Grace Nzula, and I am an HR consultant and trainer with Atara Solutions. Atara Solutions is HR consulting and training firm. We provide holistic HR solutions to all businesses, and we also support learning and development for a number of businesses. And we are located here in Nairobi, but we work from everywhere. We also run a program called Get It Right with Atara Solutions, which is a webinar series that takes place every Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. That is normally on Zoom, and then we upload all our recordings on YouTube. And yeah, that's a part to support learning and to just help people do their jobs better. Our target is normally employees and employers, and we just seek to discuss issues that affect them. Right. Oh, I'm otherwise known as the moderator of choice. So I love speaking. I love training, and I love being a moderator. I think that's a natural gift. Those things that you really never think about. That yeah. So you'll find me in a lot of events. But other than that, I also serve as a board member at the Export Processing Zones Authority. As well. My experience with government would be to that end. But I think, yeah, I think that's it about me.
Yes, I know if we were to listen to your profile, tutakava the whole day. But we appreciate that the experience is rich both in private and public sector, even at the top level. And your platforms also influence. So we believe actually you've come with a lot of insights as well. So karibu sana Grace Nzula to this session. Paul Okwemba, karibu. For a brief introduction. Yes. You're mute. Maybe you can unmute yourself.
Jambo, and sorry for the technical challenges.
Karibu, no problem.
It's a pleasure for me to be here today. For those who don't know me, I'm a HR practitioner of quite a number of years. I joined this profession around the year 2000. Immediately after my management training. Actually, I joined the HR profession after evaluating my skills, competences, and abilities, and realizing that during the management training process, and I realized that perhaps I stood a better chance in HR. That's when I started HR. So it has taken me through quite a number of organizations. G4S was my first employer as a management trainee.
Yes.
Moving me to another company called Corn Products. It's now called Ingredient. Moving me to a Coca-Cola franchise called Mount Kenya Bottlers. And finally to Nampak, it's Kenya Limited. So I've been in Nampak for the last 13 years, almost. Joined as a HR manager for Kenya, transitioned to HR manager for East Africa, and finally as a general manager for the East African region from January last year. So besides that, I'm known on the other side as a retirement planning enthusiast.
Yeah.
I've been trustee of pension schemes for many years, done so many projects in that area, and including my master's project was done right here, research on the retirement benefit industry in the country. So that's a topic I like. I think no day passes before, without talking about retirement, either to myself or to other people. I'm also, to that end also, I am a council member of the Association of Retirement Benefit Schemes. This is a group, an advocacy group that brings together all the industry players in the retirement benefit sector. And I think I'm there as a guy who looks at HR as retirement from the HR perspective. I'm also the chairman of Engineering Employers Association in Kenya, which is an affiliate of the Federation of Kenya Employers. Besides that, I've just stepped down as a chairman of the NAMPA Kenya Staff Retirement Benefit Schemes, as well as the NAMPA Kenya Staff Provident Fund, because the law does not allow a CEO to chair a sponsor's pension plan. So I'm happy to be here just to share. Probably not very good in theory, but I can only talk about things that I've seen or experienced in actual practice. And I believe they can be of help to many of us who are walking this journey either ahead of me or behind me. Asante.
Yes. Karibu sana. Thank you very much, Paul. One thing I like with you and what the panelists are saying is you have navigated your career from a certain point to where you are. And the better part of it is from that kind of a span of your career, we are sure you're going to highlight some of practical, because this session is about practical approach to the issues we'll be discussing. So thank you very much, Paul. Allow me to swiftly move now to actually the flesh of it. So members, karibuni sana. This session is not for Damaris, it's for all of us. And I believe one thing we say in adult learning is we bring experience on the table, and that's how we learn, all of us. We learn from each other's experience, and there we pick lessons that can help us transform our situations, our careers, and the goals we are pursuing. And on that note, allow me to say, for those who are in this session, because I can see a lot of new faces, my name is Damaris Ndungwa. I am an organization development and a learning strategist, or consultant, if you like. I've worked in this space. Of course, I tell people my background, my beloved background in profession-wise is human resource. But I've spent a lot of time, over 15 years now, in OD and learning space. And I am one privileged person working with Blue Concepts Africa. And this company, at the core of it, we help institutions and leaders and teams to build high performance cultures for the organization. Yes, culture. We enable culture for it to enable the people and enable the organization. And there's a lot of other things we support culture through, like leadership, building high performance teams, and other tailored programs. So besides that, of course, we create platforms like this one where we interact with professionals and other people so we can learn, because learning is how we get ahead. So karibuni sana, members. I want to drive ahead. And when we look at this topic, we're talking about challenges that face HRPS in the space of work. And it's good to just narrow down to, when we talk about challenges or issues, what exactly are we talking about? How do they look like? And here we dive into the things we experience in our workplace, very open, that we can classify them as tough and toxic. So I want to start quickly from that area of creating perspective, and I want to bring you Jill together. No, let me just bring you Jill first. When you talk about challenges, you know, what are the common challenges that HR professionals face, commonly face? Let's just start with the common one that we face in the space of HR. And this, you can just relate with your experience in the different sectors you worked in. Karibu sana.
So thank you so much for that, Damaris. For me, when I look at challenge, I look at it in tiers. So when I was starting up in my career and I was a HR assistant, I think the challenges at that level is majorly to do with showing value. So you really are bombarded with questions of what do you bring to the table. I know the younger generation have a lot of memes on this. So yes. HR, when you're starting up, the biggest thing is the question of what do you bring to the table? On the positive side, you can use it to actually carve out a name for yourself and a brand for yourself. For me, I sort of branched into performance management. So a lot of people know me for that. But now the flip side of being known for performance management is you become the HR that people create nicknames 4.
Mm-hmm.
So you become more of the stick rather than the carrot type of HR. But I think when you're starting up, that is the biggest challenge that you face. So the more you grow, so you get into middle management, you've hustled, you've gotten into middle level management, the challenges sort of change. So they become more of, where do I fit in the strategic direction for the company? So as a HR professional, you have to be very intentional in trying to carve up a space on the strategy, not just HR. If they are doing budgets, if they are doing policies, if they are doing rebrandings and all that, you really have to be very intentional about just being at the seat and adding value. So for me, what has really worked is staying true to who you are. And a lot of HR want to be generalists, which is a very good thing, but you also need to speak for something that resonates with your audience. So in as much as you might not get an opportunity to specialize and say that your field is recruitment or performance management or OD, you need to have a voice where you pick something. So for me, in the middle term of my career, when I was in middle level management, I think what I loved most in running companies generally was quality systems. So in addition to HR, I really delved into quality systems management, and you'd find any discussion about product quality, branding quality, I would be looped in, not as HR, but as a voice in the quality systems, linking it to the people matrix. So as a HR professional, you really need to find something that you love generally about companies that you work for, and then try to marry it with HR so that you get invited to the seats. So if I look at my step by step, I think the reason why I've even been invited to sit in board positions is I was majorly known for HR, yes, but more so for linking HR to quality systems. So you find that when I'm in a board, I'm not speaking about only retention, termination, and all that. So one of the biggest challenge I have seen, and I still see right now, is showing value to finance teams, and a lot of toxicities that start off in different industries. You'll find the root cause is conflicts between finance teams and HR teams. So this is something as HR professional, we really need to start speaking finance and speaking in a language that finance teams understand, because you'll realize with top management, the other thing that also brings a lot of challenges in how we do HR is top management does not really understand you. And if you're someone who is in performance management, then it means that the people who report to you have even branded you a certain name because you have to be the person who carries the stick. So you're basically in an island of your own. So you need to craft a language where you can speak to top management and also you speak to the people that are below you. And sometimes it does not work. If I link it to this conversation of toxic environment, sometimes we go so much outwards. And I was talking to a friend and I was telling them, you see, people usually say HR are not friendly. They are not the best people to deal with. But what they do not ask is why. Imagine you're in a situation where you're in the middle of everything. Like the people at the top are giving you pressure. The people at the bottom are giving you pressure. The people at the sides are giving you pressure. Yeah. So you just have to create like a coping mechanism. And I think that is where we are. We do not have a HR for HR people. So we do not have someone who comes and HRs you. But you're supposed to HR the top management. You're supposed to HR the lower cadre staff. You're supposed to HR your peers, and it gets to you. And as human beings, we really need to start giving ourselves graces and say, you know what? I have been toxic myself because of pressure, and just give yourself grace and say, you know what? Tomorrow I will do better. So I think as HR professionals, that is the pressure we face on a daily basis, because it's a delicate balance. If you go too much towards the employees, then chances are very high you'll not rise in your career. If you go too much towards the management, then the people that you're managing will not feel that you have their best interest at heart. And someone who is at the middle, of course, you will at some point rub some people off the wrong way. And I feel that we need to give ourselves graces to say, you know what, I'm not perfect. I will make mistakes, but I will make a point of just bouncing out of it and just trying to be better and better as you go along. So for me, that would be it.
Thank you, Jill. I like what you're saying. Of course, we have many names, and I think you've highlighted very well. One of the scenarios that leads to us having many names is because we're sort of at the middle of all this. while we have to, advocate for both of the interests of the company and interests of the people. But still, we still can navigate while we choose to stay sober and make our choices very well. So that's really fantastic. And my people, by the way, I really want to hear from you. If you understand that and you're in HR, definitely I'm sure you understand what Jill is saying. When things are coming hot from, from your supervisor and top there, and people are looking at you like you really have to be on our side and you have to make the most objective decision right there. So have you experienced some of these challenges? You could actually think, hey, this one, man, it's getting into me. Or this one is tough. Or it's even getting toxic. And when it gets toxic, it really affects other faculties of your own self. That includes your emotions, decision making, and even the level of engagement you have with people. So what challenges have you had? You can share with us that you have experienced as an HR, as you navigate that role. You might not even be per se purely an HR profession. For those who are here and you're in other professions, what challenges have you been facing? Tell us in your career that you can actually classify them as, well, for me, or it's just getting into me, it's toxic. So feel free in the chat, tell us so we can be able to learn from each other. And I want to come to you, Paul, as we will come back to you, Jill, on that. And I want Paul to bring it to reality. You give us really common practical, if you might want to say it like that, examples that you can relate with in this space, especially in your career, that we can also make, relate with for other people within the space of HR at any level of HR. Paul. You're mute. You may want to unmute yourself.
I look at toxicity as something that should be part of the risk management menu for any HR professional. And toxicity can present itself in so many ways. It can be actual.
Yeah.
It can be perceived. It can be apparent. It's just like conflict of interest. So I think also attitude comes in quite well, and how to manage it. And for me, actually a living example of what you can do with toxicity. Probably I've gone through quite a number of examples. I said from the beginning that we started this HR career very early when many people did not understand it. So the first thing that's happened is when you went into an organization was rejection, because trying to professionalize HR meant that you're taking away some powers, authorities, and I mean, you're trying to neutralize some politics around people management and all that. So I've had enough of that in my career. In fact, to be honest with you guys, my first 2 jobs, I was fired. Yeah, I was fired from G4S and I was also fired from Corn Products. But on hindsight, it's because I stood my ground as a HR. And perhaps the people who are there at that time did not understand the importance of running a professional HR organization.
Yes.
Of course, they were long built. So much politics built around over the years, and it was very common to be told in the boardroom, "Sasa wewe kijana unajua nini?" And there you are, 28 years old. You just started. You're not even sure whether you know anything, but you're just trying to assert yourself and say this is how HR should be done. So rejection was one of the first biggest toxicities that we experienced those years. And I think generally I think if I may take you, for instance, I joined Corn Products, and the first day I arrived, I found that the HR manager had resigned. The admin, those days were called personnel managers. The admin manager had resigned. The HR personnel and admin officer had also resigned. So the HR and the personnel and admin officer came in for 6 hours to hand over to me, an organization that had about 400 people. And the beautiful thing she did is that she did a well-written handover. So I took over. She just basically, this is what we do in this area. This is what we do. And that's where I realized the power of having strong policies. From there on, I realized that for you to survive as a HR, your first weapon is policies. You must navigate the area of policies, because policies are the ones that will protect each and every action that you take as you move on. So as I told you, I was fired in corn products because I tried to enforce integrity in the procurement of raw materials.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a responsibility under me by virtue of being the guy in charge of security.
Yes.
And I tried to assert integrity. Apparently, I did not know that it was, I was stepping on the toes of very powerful people. So one day I was just called and told that, my friend,
Yes.
you are fired.
You're fired.
Yes, and for the 4 years I worked in this place, I started off as I was employed, of course, as a personnel and administration assistant. Then the 3 guys left, so I transitioned very fast. The director who was there told me, young man, we can give you this job if you work. So I worked, and after 1 year, I became a personnel officer. After 2 years, I was a HR manager, and this is an international organization. And within the 3rd year, I was a HR and admin manager. One of the most toxic things I experienced was unequitable pay. Because all through this time, all these significant promotions, of course, there was a small paragraph there saying your terms and conditions will remain the same. Yeah. So you can manage that enormous change in duties and responsibilities coming with nothing. And I could look at other departmental heads earning about 2-3 times what I used to earn. Something interesting is that at one point, I never ever complained. I never ever went to somebody to complain about my salary. I just focused on doing the right thing. And I was learning. In the process, I was learning and learning and learning. I have a lot of respect for one guy called Jason Namasake, who was in FKE. That guy taught me employee relations in a big way. I had one of the directors who also taught me about how to manage a manufacturing environment. So eventually, of course, I said I left. And interesting, in the next organization, which is the franchise, Mount Kenya Bottlers, I was interviewed, and at the end of it, I was told, you're not the best person, you are the 3rd from the results. But we think you're the right person for this job. Yeah. And these were all the directors. Wale walikuwa wanakuita kijana. Wewe kijana, tunaona wewe unaweza hii kazi. And basically, one of the things that they were trying to run away from was the influence of ethnicity in management of HR. Because Mount Kenya Bottlers is located in Nyeri. And I think there was a lot of negative ethnicity in the plant. So they wanted somebody who could fight that and try to make the place competitive. Now, when they asked me how much I wanted to get, of course, I said, I compared myself with my previous colleagues who are HODs. And I asked for what they were getting. So it was about 3 times my salary. And this guy said, well, we have a standard, we have a policy, so it'll be paid according to the grading system. And there I got about 1.5 more than what I asked for. But it was a tough job. And that's where I honed my skills in HR, because it involved basically building a HR department from the start and dealing with all those negative experiences that had put the company down. One of the most interesting things is that within the first month of joining, a decision was made by the board to fire the MD. And the MD, the board was not courageous enough to tell the MD that you have been fired. So they sent the MD for a conference, international conference, and in his absence, they constituted a board, they made a resolution, fired the MD, signed the letter, and they called me to the boardroom and told me, when the MD comes, please hand over this letter to him. Now, This is the MD that had hired me just 2 months ago. And I had to fire him. And of course, being the clever chap that I was, I decided that G4S will do this job. So I called in the manager and told him, you guard the MD's residence, make sure when he comes back, you give him this letter he signs and you bring back the signed document to me. And then, of course, somehow it worked. And we started now changing the organization. And I was put in the lead as the secretary for the board committee on HR and finance. That is when I started expanding my horizons in HR. Changing the organization was difficult because of vested interests, but we succeeded through a very, very difficult environment. I managed to work with the finance manager who was there, was promoted to an MD. I managed to work with her for 4 years, and she's one of the most influential persons in my career because she was very good in managing businesses, and she told me, she always made sure that I knew whatever decision was made for the business. But from the other side, of course, because of the vested interest, at some point even, I mean, you feel like you are insecure, you can't move out there. One time I had to move my house, stay in a hotel because we're trying to, we were not sure about my security. I was the only guy from outside, and guys were saying like, huyu Mluya amekuja hapa kufanya nini? You know, those kind of things. But it worked. It worked for me because I learned so much. I was in charge of the strategic planning committee. I learned literally everything that runs in a business. I knew the sales strategy. I designed the sales incentive program that transformed the company. The long and short of it is that within 5 years, the fortunes of the company changed tremendously. In the second year of the company, we were able to put in policies and
Bwana Okwemba, I wanted to audit there on what that managed to do for the company. And you are the real definition of the tough and toxic environment in terms of experience. If I may actually rephrase it, being able to navigate as a young professional in HR, I'm just tempted to say emotional intelligence at its level on how to navigate that is one of the things that we cannot actually work without. I like the way you navigated up to, someone is saying you even fired your own MD, although you are not involved. I mean, what a game is that? And thanks very much for sharing that. But I want to, first of all, I'm seeing insightful sharing from the people here on toxic or tough environment they have gone through. And I want to pick one or two here. So we see whether what Paul is saying and Jill is saying also is resonating. So Lillian, you're saying being asked to fire an employee who is a son, daughter of business owner, shareholder. Ni wangapi? How many people can relate with that one? Now, unaambiwa you have to fire them and you know what it means and how big is their godfather or mother. Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah. Millicent, you're saying, oh my God, HR had resigned was an alarm. That must have been Paul's story there. Yes, and Lillian, you're reiterating something here from what Paul is saying. Being told to fire a relative is, yes, I think you're responding to what someone said there. It's harder being told not to fire an errand relative. Those are very different but yet tough situations. And while the firing of the MD without being involved, I think that's the wisdom of Paul sending a G4S. What an insightful sharing right there. So my people, what challenges are you experiencing? It's good that you share some of the ones that you're struggling with in your career so we could actually get some minutes and explore some solutions around that. But I want to bring in Grace Nzula right here. And these things, as Jill said, at the end of it all, they sort of affect us as people, the HRs, even our personalities. And I want Grace, to help us explore a bit, how do these things really, issues that we face, affect us personally as well as our careers? Karibu, Grace.
Thank you, Damaris. I was listening to Jill and Okwemba, and I'm like, hey, which world have you guys been into? But
These
anyway,
ones are from another tough skin
they have
itself.
been like,
Mhm.
right. But yeah, I mean, the interesting part about challenges or status toxicity is when you're in a toxic place that you don't think it's toxic. Like when you can't really even spot that either you are toxic or you're in a toxic environment. I think that is one of the toughest things to have around. However, so you asked the effects of working or having to navigate these challenges. I think the first thing is it takes a toll on your emotions. Sometimes you find yourself going to hospital with high acidity issues and stomach, or what we call in mental health, we call it hapa syndrome. You're having a headache here, you're having a stomach ache there, you're having you're getting migraines, your arms are aching, your muscles are aching. There's something is just painful somewhere. So that is the result of emotional, too much emotional, undealt with issues. So, right, these challenges, of course, take a toll on our emotions, and sometimes if you're not careful, you'll you end up uh, dipping into depression, especially if you don't deal with it. And then the other thing is you get distracted because you're not focusing on the right thing. You have become a firefighter. There's always a fire somewhere that you actually need to put off. And at that point, you end up now just showing up every day to just fight fire. Your work is just to firefight. And then you lose track on the important things that you're supposed to do. So yeah, you get distracted because, I mean, there's always conflict to be solved. There's always somebody who is fighting somewhere. You know, you're busy uh, trying to play mediator between employer, employee, and sometimes even yourself. You're trying to push for something. You're trying to push for an agenda, but unfortunately, it cannot go anywhere because the team that you're working with it does not support you. So you become a firefighter, and therefore you lose track on the most important thing, and then you start wondering now, where were we? And sometimes you sit at the end of the day and you're trying to account for what you have achieved. You know, if somebody asks you, what have you done in the last 2 months? And you look at them and you're like, oh, you really can't. And you know, you cannot write that you have been attending meetings and problem solving for 3 months in terms of performance. If Jill were to get you there, then you'll have to figure out how your numbers are coming in. Yeah, so that is the other thing, because you get distracted again. You start the other impact is you stall on your career growth. Yeah, because at that point you're distracted, you're firefighting, you're dealing with other issues, then you end up even forgetting who you are, because every day there's something you're always looking outwards, and you don't have a minute to breathe and look inward. So sometimes your career can actually stagnate, because then you have no opportunity to look ahead, you have no opportunity to invest in anything. Like you can't even find time to attend such a webinar because you're busy firefighting. You, like, it's Saturday, it's when things are supposed to have slowed down, but you're there, you're trying to firefight again, you're trying to catch up with the reports for the week, you're trying to do all those other things, then you end up not investing in your career growth. And then of course there are compliance issues. Sometimes when you get distracted, things are bound to fall into the cracks. So you might, something that you would otherwise deal with easily, that's the part where instead of firing, I remember one time I was dealing with so many issues, and then there was this guy who constantly used to be absent at work. And this particular day, like, I was done. You know those things you're like, I am so done, I can't. Then the guy just decides, you know what, I am not coming. Then you check his file, he has 3 warning letters, I don't know what. And this is very early in my career. And that day I was like, by the way, you are out. You are leaving today. And that morning, I just went, no hearing, nothing, just went, did my letter, and fired the guy. And this is a guy who had worked, I think, I remember because he was unionized, his severance pay, I mean, his final package was coming to 700,000.
Wow.
And here we are with a case. And I was like, oh my God. You know, I saw that letter from the union and I remembered, oh shoot, I should have followed procedure. So I got caught up in the mess that I did not sit to actually think that there is procedure to be followed. And at that point, I was the only HR in that institution. So, oh my God, oh my God. So I ended up having to attend to do here, you know, those, now our hearing had to go and we started now negotiating. This guy, yes, his file has indications that he has not been doing well, but the actual last process, you missed it. So when you're caught up in firefighting and when you're dealing with all these challenges, you end up having, having cracks in your procedures, and then that may end up actually costing you and your organization a lot of money. And then the other thing is having, sometimes you feel like your opinions don't matter, even when you have been positioned like a subject matter expert, and sometimes your relevance is really questionable. You start questioning your relevance in that organization. And once you start questioning your relevance, then we are saying you need to fight back, you need to be a strong HR, but here you are, you don't have that opportunity to be that person. Because again, you also don't have autonomy on decisions. So sometimes all these things now start affecting the person you are, start affecting you and the job. And of course, it becomes a very, very difficult place to work. Now, if you are trying to even implement policies in such an organization or in such an environment, it becomes really difficult. So you're trying to push, I think after Tuesday, there's somebody who reached out to me and she was like, I am an HR, I am here, but there's a consultant who comes here, but I am telling you, this organization, no one listens to her. No one, even the consultant who is working in that institution, they are not even supporting like the business. So she's there trying to fight for performance management. She's trying to fight for initiatives, but she's stuck because she does really not have support. And sometimes this getting stuck can really, really even make you switch careers. I am telling you the truth. Sometimes you might give up on your career when it's very, very young. And sometimes you keep wondering, where does passion and excellence meet, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you very much. You really hit some wires that are very practical and real on the frustration. I'm sure I went through, I believe most of us also went through. There is a space of you need to take action. You still don't know. There are consequences. The learning you have to just learn as you move on, and there are big consequences that really bring you big trouble. Yes, and I like the way you very candid on how you can approach that, because we all make these errors that really bring us the real trouble from the top and the union and everywhere. Which is the experience of HR, especially when you're starting. I have a lot of people laughing so much in the chat. Let me see. She set up fire here and we don't know. Yeah. Mweni Ngui, you're saying, I can relate to Paul's story where I am currently is tough and quite toxic. Ebu share a bit of those things that you're experiencing there so we see whether we can find some insights. Coach Muya, you're saying, oh dear, Paul. Let me pick this one very well. I want to read all of it. You were baptized by fire. Clearly, baptism by fire as an entry in HR. Now, unacheza na Paul, even fired the MD at the top. Isn't that the real navigation you're talking about? Yes?
Damaris, you know,
Yes.
My first 3 months on the job, there was actually a strike.
A real strike.
And then
that
the
is
MD
real now
leaves.
bad fire.
Yeah, the MD leaves, and these guys are here, and you have been told to sort out that mess.
You want the consultant now to come. Wow. Tell
There
us
was
what
no
did you
room
do?
for consultant, my friend.
Eh?
Hey,
Wow.
talk of baptism by fire. You know, sometimes you hear people saying or dismissing. And I'm sure Okwamba can also relate with the striking employees. Sometimes you hear people dismissing your number of experience and you have the things you have gone through, even if in those 5 years of experience, my friend, you
Yeah.
can write a book that can become a bestseller. Hey, HR. By the
Wow.
way, we deserve a special place in heaven.
Hey, serious. We require a new accreditation. I really reckon with that. Absolutely. So how did you navigate that? I'm curious, just in some few seconds, Grace.
So I tried to negotiate with these guys and they were not having any of it. So day one, we just let it pass. The 5 o'clock came, they clocked out, they changed from their overalls and left. Then the next day
Now,
they came in at
yes,
the next day
continue.
they came in at 8 a.m. and they did the same thing, clock in, put on overalls and go and sit there. They're not working. So I tried to negotiate, I tried to engage the union, oh my God, the amount of talking I did. But on that afternoon, I still remember how hot my cheeks got. Because I was coming from lunch, I go and find the machines are not running, and I'm like, what had just happened? You know, and unfortunately, the notice that they had given, somebody had sat on it. So you're like, you guys, this is an illegal strike, and they tell you, here is our copy. We sent this to you. Kumbe somebody received it and put it, and I don't know. Yeah, talk of toxicity some places. But yeah, negotiation, my friends. That day, the next day I came back with big girls fund. And I told myself, Grace, you're no longer the young girl. You're here. You have been given this job because you deserve it. So start talking. Start figuring out the center point. Yeah, and I had to sit the board down and we had a conversation. Yeah.
I like that. Thanks very much for sharing that. And I think this is something that seems to be popping out even from what Gio said. It gets to a point you really have to call yourself to a real kamukutano and speak to yourself as you. And you find your position and role in this chaos that you find in yourself. I think it's the same thing Okwamba also said, I am the real young man, as they used to call you, but you see, you really have your role to play. And people are looking out that you really have to play it very well. So what is it that you need to do for it to work? And I think that's one thing that I, walk and get off this conversation knowing at every point, there is a reason why you're somewhere and people are trusting you for being in that place. And besides what is happening, there's a point you get and say you had better pull your strategy as your own strategy, and you call yourself for accountability for it. And I like that, Grace, for really resounding that, and also Gio and Paul. So yes, I know people are really connecting with the stories we are sharing here. Keep them coming. Share your challenges. MDs and CEOs not understanding HR practices and fair labor practices. Unaambiwa you go fire. I said you fire that guy today. And expecting them to be yes person all the time. If you're listening to the panelists, there are some points you'll have to really advise before you find a way on sorting these things out. Being in a law firm, everyone knows, that is Miss Owino, knows it all. Yeah? My senior counsel there. I think Zola works with one of them in one of the boards. Is that true? And can be corrected. Yeah, ita yourself a kamkutano. You're the same, on the same table because of certain credibility. That's what you're saying. So allow me to shift the gears at this point, and I want to shift to, beside the challenges we're going through, and I like it because the panelists are sharing the challenge and how they went around to solve the issue. So we are getting some of whether not active solutions or techniques or mechanisms. So now we can, and I can see people appreciating things they're learning, which is a good thing. But I want to see, how do we what strategies are there? Are there some key strategies we can point ourselves to that when we see this challenge, we can quickly know this is a way to respond? And I want to bring you, Jill, a bit back where you left it, and you tell us what challenges or mechanisms that you can say, this one, you will have to go around like this, or, you know, this one, man, usijaribui, don't even try to go there. Instead, wewe, what kind of mechanisms you can use, maybe the ones you've gathered while in the sector, and the ones now you can actually view from where you are, because I know you've grown to another sector. Welcome, Jim.
So I just love the analogy of the strike, because my first nickname was Bensuda. So unlike Grace, me, when they locked the gate, I came with police and swept them in a canter, and they were bemboed to police station. I was 22, so I remember mine was not cordial. So the next time they wanted to strike, they came to me with a different language. So for me, what I've really learned along the way, because
yes.
You see, there is a gender element to toxicity that a lot of people ignore. So if you're a woman in leadership and you're young, imagine there is an additional layer. There is an additional layer to what you have to deal with. Sometimes your boss is anakukatia hapo, their junior staff wanakukatia hapo, and you have nobody to report these harassment issues to. So I think you see, for women, we really have to change our personalities completely and become extremely rough. And it's not atiko ubaya. So the people who are not HR people, just understand, because Mazevitu, they are really tough. So sometimes you have to really just become very, very aggressive. But in terms of coping, what has really worked for me, and now I'm realizing it, that now that I'm actually in the decision-making tables and I drive strategy, is you really learn how to fight fair. A lot of us really shy away from fighting. We just really need to learn the art of fighting and fighting fair. So usikue like you're waiting for someone to save you, because it will never happen. As we've established, when you're in HR, you're on your own. So the one of the key skills that you really need to develop early on is the art of fighting, and fighting fair, and knowing how far is too far. Like for me, the biggest statement that I usually ask myself after every meeting is asking myself, how far is too far for me? And having that courage to walk away from certain situations, even including resigning. But before you resign, you really need to learn the art of fighting and fighting fair, and saying, how far is too far, and what is my fighting language? So for me, I'm known for doing a lot of noted with thanks. My emails are very passive aggressive. So you'll never find me in a verbal confrontation with anyone. But when I write you an email, you will know if I've used some nice words there to describe who you are. But it's good for you to learn how to have agency and advocate for yourself, whether to people who report to you or people who you report to. Just have that sense of agency and sticking to your morals and principles, and not allowing people to cross your integrity as a human being, let alone the work. The other thing is to learn how to navigate workplace politics. Politics is the biggest thing of toxic culture. Like grapevine, all that. So as a HR person, you have to have your ears on the ground so that you're not hit with strays at you're seated in your office and a stray just hits you. You really need to know how to understand office politics and play that politics, because you will not rise in your career if you do not know how to play politics. And this is not just a HR issue. For you to be CEO, you have to learn how to play politics. For you to be a director, you really need to learn how to play politics. You need to learn how to play politics even as you change it. So don't just go, I'm changing this 40-year-old culture. You need to understand who are the power players. You might think it's the CEO, kumbe it's the guard. You might think it's the receptionist, kumbe it's the girlfriend to the MD that you have not figured out. So you really need to know like the back end of how the organization works, the structure that is written and the actual structure that runs the organization, and learn how to navigate that system. The other thing that has really worked for me is ignorance is bliss. Like for me, I usually say, if it does not concern me, I am going to remain ignorant to it. I'm just going to plow my life. Plow my shamba. So for me, having that element of just knowing what your KPIs are, what your boundaries are in terms of your job specification, and just plowing your own line regardless.
Yeah.
And then if you can be able to choose your employer wisely, you know, for me, sometimes people say that employees wakiwacha hawawachikangi. Me, there's an employer I watched them, and they did not accept to wachika. So they were on my LinkedIn blasting me and saying nasty things and all that.
Yeah.
So I usually tell HR professionals, do not believe what employers tell you about our staff. When I do background checks now, and someone tells me this person was ABCD, if they did not do illegal things like theft, fighting, I usually put it with a grain of salt, because I personally experienced, and I was now just leaving a very high level job. I was GM actually. And my employer went on my LinkedIn, on my social media pages, including my Facebook, to say nasty things about me like a troll, you know. So the employers also who hawakubalingi kuachika. So if you can be able to choose a good employer, start from that, because it will save you a lot of unnecessary drama. And also have your own legal team. Ukisikia mtu amekudefame, have the courage to take them to court. You know, a lot of us HR people say, sitaki kesi ikuwe attached to my name, it will make me not get another job. And that's why a lot of us are having drama. Because you find if someone had taken action, this person would not think it's right. So me, you defame me, I'll take screenshot, you'll get a demand notice. It does not matter if you're a billionaire or what. I know you have power more than me, but I will not allow you to cross my boundaries, you know. So it's good for also remember, in as much as we are HR managers, we are also employees. Kitua tunasahau tunajiekanga so much with the employer side, we forget that even as employees, even us, we have rights. So that is a very good way of just ensuring, even in future, your boundaries are well respected. Yeah. And right now, for me, I think I have a lot of a solid support system. We find that HR attracts a lot of people who are introverts. So you find that we really like staying in a cocoon. And working in this field, at the higher you go, the hotter it is. Mi nakwambia sahi niko director level na bado kuna moto. So the higher you go, the hotter it is. And if you do not have like a social system outside of work that is supporting your mental health, you will crash. For me, I was at times speaking about mental health and HR professionals, and I was actually in a senior level position in kila mtu anasema, I want to be head of HR for X brand. Me, I'm not very comfortable. Staki lawsuit, you mean I was swinging. So this person was saying, I would want to be there, but I was actually crashing. My mental health was very bad. My employers did not have boundaries. They would call me at night. They would call me early morning at 4. They do not have boundaries at all in terms of your personal space. So the higher you perform, and this affects a lot of high performing people, which I consider myself, you find that the more work you do, the more work you're given. And it really gets to your mental health. And as HR professionals, ni vizuri tu tuseme, you know what, I am crashing. Does not matter if I'm a director of a company, I am crashing and I need help. And then people will definitely swap for you if you have that type of relationship. So for me, I believe in usiogope labels. If you're doing something right, for me, I even made a t-shirt. They used to call me, one company, I was Bensuda, another one was IG, Inspector General. So people used to do that behind my back. So when I figured out what my nickname is, I printed t-shirts. So on Fridays, I would put on Bensuda. I'm like, I own it. I accept it. This is who I am. Not be afraid of words. Words cannot hurt you. Just have a very clear line of growth. Try to be a good person. And even if it does not translate to other people, do the right things. Do not bend the law. Do not bend the law for your employer. Do not bend the law for your employees. Do not bend the law for yourself. When you're standing on the right thing, it does not matter what anyone else says. So for me, I think that has really worked. And despite being slandered by my very big corporate boss, I still got a board position by nomination, and it worked out in the end. So if you do the right things and you're known for a certain quality of work, some of these things will just affect you in the short term, but not the long term. So for me, there is definitely hope. There is actually definitely hope at the end of the tunnel. And then there is also that option of doing something else. You see, for me, I'm doing HR, but I'm also doing something else. You have that capacity to also expand out of HR so that you get that satisfaction of doing something you love. And then you still do HR, because I love HR, but in heart. So that's why I diversified out of it. But you find a way of doing things that you love. And then in the end,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. I think we need to give Bensouda, is it Inspector General, some emojis for that candid conversation. She actually has dug deep in her own experience for some lessons. And that's really inspiring, you know, Jill. From choosing to plow your line, to watch, for lack of good word, kiherehere huku na kule, we focus on our own line, stay objective, be bold, honest, and stick to our own stand. Hey, what have I learned from this? And that alone doesn't mean that you will not be having these challenges anyway, because you can't really stop people from this. Utawacha, watakata kukuacha ama ukatae kuachika. Yani you left an employer and this employer came looking for you online. Yeah, and I believe, I mean, how many people really connect with that one? People who you leave them and your prospective employer cannot call them because now they are so annoyed with that. And what can you do? We just build coping mechanism for ourselves. And I believe that's why we are here. And people are really up and, you know, saying the nicknames right here. Let me see what they're saying. So we are learning. And I want to, you know, focus a bit on something that you've said and bring Grace in the picture. And I want, Grace, just quickly, you bring to light, how can we navigate this aspect of politics? From listening to Jill's story, kuna ile utiaji. There are those people who are your friends, but really, uko on the other side, they're really your biggest enemies. How do we overcome that? I think also Paul mentioned that sometimes in his career, kuna watu wa hii group, you know, you have to align with this side, utuambie uko pande gani, kind of that policy. How do we navigate that at the same time, maintain our professional integrity?
Thank you, Damaris. And Madam Bensouda, how are you? I have a digger. Or is it Inspector General?
Yeah. This is Inspector. He's not joking, which is a good lesson for all of us.
Quite interesting, Jill.
Mm-hmm.
So you asked how can we navigate politics? I think the first thing I would say is embrace politics. Like Jill has said, HRs, we tend to run away from politics. We tend to want to assume or paint a picture of wanting peace. But unfortunately, politics does not have to be very combative. You can play soft politics. You can play politics to actually get what you want. And I think this is one of the things that HR professionals need to learn, and especially those who keep saying that management is not supportive of our initiatives, or we do not know how to sell HR initiatives to the board or to the management, or we are always told after you do your presentation, then finance has to stamp or affirm that whatever it is you're saying makes a lot of sense. So I think HR professionals, first thing we need to do is embrace politics. Then, and I'm telling you, there is no such, okay, most of the private sector politics are easy, I can tell you. My friend, politics in public sector, hey!
Feel the beans.
Oh my God, politics in public sector are on another level. Hey!
Yes, very intentional.
Hey, do you know, in public sector, everything you do, and I mean everything, from the words you use to anything any conversation you're having, you have to be very careful about what you're saying, because it can and will be used against you at some point, right? So I think the first thing we need to do as HR is to really embrace politics, accept that this is happening around us. This is, and Jill has put it very well. The higher you go, the worse it's gonna get. So if you want to grow your career, my friend, you cannot grow your career and not play politics. That's number one, the first thing that we need to embrace. The next thing that we need to do is, now, after you have embraced that politics are part of life and a way of life, the next thing you need to do is always remember to stay objective. Do not be caught up in between. Please stay your course. Like, the noise will be there, I tell you. The noise will be there. Motionnaire will come. We told that people, I used to work in a company where my replacement was actually interviewed in a hotel, and then they were brought for me to induct. Yes.
Wow.
And then you're told, so we have sat as a board, we have decided that we are bringing this person in. They will be taking your title, and they are reporting on Tuesday. We will be in Canada when they come, so we are trusting you to induct them. Then you ask, so what am I supposed to do? Then you have worked
Hallelujah.
in this so long,
Hey.
you will figure out what else you can do.
Yes.
And they leave for Canada, my friend. And you're left there, you're like, okay, where did the whatever beat me? But those are some of the things that make you who you are, because some of those challenges, when you navigate, my friend, there's nothing but just being strong. So, and like I've said, the public sector is on its own. So stay objective. Always remember to stay objective. What is your result? Where are you going? Be very clear about what you're focusing on, because all this will just be noise. And most of that noise is actually coming to slow you down, right? So make sure to always remember to be objective. The next thing about navigating a political environment is always write things down. My friend, and especially if your memory is at that age where all of us are working, we cannot even remember what we said the last 2 minutes,
Yeah.
Always write things down. And please write things down, and do not try as much as possible not to forget. Write things down. After that meeting that you have had, go and following at the meeting you have held. Write down what the agreements were, and then share that, because then it stops being hearsay. It stops being your word against the other person. It becomes documented. Like, this is what we have agreed upon, and it is written down. Like everything. Hey, now again, on writing down, if you're signing a document, please sign every page. Don't just sign where it is written your name. Up or you put your signature and assume things are going to. My friend, if you're signing a document, make sure you sign every page. I tell you this. There's a time some documents were brought to me. We signed, right? Then by the time we're going to do a presentation to the boards, I realized they went and did their own thing and plaqued the page with our signatures and attached to the document. So I'm doing my presentation to the board and I'm like, wait a minute. This is not my document. This is not my document. And you're in the middle of a board meeting, and now everyone is looking at you like, and you have to tell the chairman, please allow me a minute. Let me find out what happened. And then you call the person who was doing the final whatever to bring to the board, and they deny right on your face. And they say, my friend, this is what you presented.
What?
It is a special board meeting to just discuss your agenda. The only reason all these grown-up people are gathering together is because of your agenda. And then you start explaining yourself that this was not my. Do you know how stupid you start looking?
Yeah, the career is at risk.
Yes. Sign every page. Do not just sign the page that is written your name. Sign every page. It will save you at some point. And then, like I've said, make sure that everything you write is documented. Document. Now, the thing about navigating a political environment is be transparent. Communicate very clearly and be very transparent. When you communicate clearly and you're transparent, people will not have, you'll see loopholes, right? I know one of the leaders in this country who, when you send a text and say, by the way, so-and-so said this and this, say Gio, that leader will pick Jill's message and send it to Damaris. So you're saying Damaris said 1, 2, 3. He will take that, send it to Damaris, and then call both of you. And you eye on that. That is transparency. And that means that by the next time Jill thinks about kuchomea Damaris, Jill will think twice.
You
So
think
people
twice.
will just, yes, people might just skip off. So communicate clearly and be transparent, right?
Yeah.
Don't allow room for all this noise, because it will always be there. Just make sure that you're very clear about it. Now, the other thing that you need to do is listen actively. Active listening is just being present fully. Because if you don't listen actively, something will be said and something will be used against you.
Yeah.
So listen and understand, and don't just listen to reply. Listen, understand, see the emotions behind whatever you're being told, see whatever it is that they are not saying. Because as they say what they're saying, there's something behind the scenes that they're trying to communicate. Your work is to figure out what is this behind the scenes. Because some people will tell you things, and especially in politics, people will tell you stories. And then you have to sit back and ask yourself, wait a minute, where were they going with it? And that time you probably already agreed or approved something that will actually make your organization now start having issues. And then seek mediation, because some political environments will always have conflict. There's always somebody trying to outdo the other. There's always somebody trying to get a contract for the other person. Oh, my brother is at home. Oh, I don't know what. Please stay focused, right? And then try and lead by example. You as the HR professional, what exactly do you want? If people are bringing Moshene and Moshene you don't want, you know, the more you entertain Moshene, you're just telling us that it is okay to bring Moshene. So please keep off, you know, just lead by example. These are the standards you're setting in this organization. These are the things I want, and I want to push forward with it. And then always seek continuous improvement.
Yes.
There's always room for improvement. There's always room for learning. Like this aspect of emotional intelligence, we were not necessarily born with it. We keep learning. We keep learning. We keep embracing empathy. We keep embracing self-regulation. You know, last week I remember something happened and I got really pissed off on Saturday. And then on Monday when I was reflecting, I realized I am falling short of self-regulation. It's something that has triggered that I am not able to self-regulate. And I had to call myself for a meeting. And we must embrace continuous improvement, continuous learning, and just seeking to become better persons as we navigate this world. So political environment, please, HR professionals, let's embrace politics. Let's stop running away from politics. And I think if you're seeking to become Paul Okwamba is currently a CEO. If you're seeking to get there, my friend, you will not get there if you
have to learn the game.
My friend. And when we say politics, by the way, the assumption with politics that it is the assumption that it is dirty. You really don't have to play dirty politics. You can play politics, but they do not have to be dirty. And I think the one thing that you have always to remember when you're in a political environment is try and put the institution's interest first. Unfortunately, in Kenya, we really put our personal interest first. Put the institution's interest first. People may not like it, but you will be happy with yourself in the long run when your institution is actually thriving. And somebody was like, but these guys, I'm only here for a short time, blah, 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 blah. I keep saying, put the institution's interest first, then have your own interest. Not the other way around. Not your interest, then the institution. Do the institution, then have your interest. And try. If you have opportunities that both can benefit, why not?
Yeah, true. Very true.
Know? And we keep saying, oh, they're employing their brothers, they're employing their sisters. My friend, where else do you want my sisters to be employed if I have an opportunity to employ my sister? I mean, I am against employing too many of them. But if my cousin is suffering at home and I have an opportunity to give them a job, I will give them a job. Because the point of coming to Nairobi was to reduce poverty in Ushago. Let's just agree.
Wow. Yeah,
my just a small one. My brief experience with public sector about 10 years ago, I sat for an interview for a very good position. Perhaps if I got that position, you'll be seeing me on TV every day, but I never got it. And this is how I missed out. I went up to the last stage and I was called now to go and pick my letter So I was told, please be here at 7 a.m. because the GM is very busy, the GM for HR. And I'd actually been recruited as to take over for him because he was approaching his retirement. So I woke up very early and I drove, and for sure, by 7 a.m., I was comfortably sitting in the boardroom waiting for the GM. I was given tea, I was given newspapers, and then I sat there 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Guy shows up at 11:30. And when he came in, he did not even apologize. He just went straight and started talking about his appointment letter. So I just looked at him. He did the letter. He told me to bring it back in the next 2 days. Then I was driving back to the office. I was asking myself, surely I have a very good working environment. Why am I taking myself to work under this guy? So I just go to the office, declined, and put it back on G4S and send it back. Yeah. No need to step into that toxic environment if you have an alternative. Yeah.
No, if you have an alternative, I agree with you. Why are you putting yourself under fire? Yani unajichoma ukiona tu. Okay.
Exactly. You were given a test of it, eh?
Yes, and the guys who are really pushing me to take up the job, the things they were telling me about the job were like, this job, there's so many marupupu, there's so many traveling, there's so many. I don't want that. I want to do a job, I want to be paid my salary, and I decide whether I will travel with the salary, whatever I want to do, I want the money in my pocket. I don't want per diem. Yeah. So as Grace says, many people are driven by self-interest in whatever they do, and it doesn't last so long. I mean, if it doesn't prevail at the end of the day. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Paul. I think that really resonates. I think it's Jill who said so it's very important if you have the opportunity, chagua your employer properly before you jump in. It will save you a lot of trouble. You wouldn't even be thinking about this toxicity in the first place, but just sliding into growth. Wow, yes, that's real experience. Guys, what are you saying? I think it's about time you put your questions in the chat so we can see how many we can be able to do. We have half an hour before we go to end of this session. And Paul, I want you to share something you said earlier in the session that, as much as we are trying to balance these things, there's things that will cost you. Yeah, there are decisions that you'll take stand on and they will really cost you. And I think that's where the biggest fear comes from for most of professionals, trying to balance the cost and how to handle the cost of making that decision. But on the other hand, we know, or we are told that it's important you take your stand, you stick to your values, you really know what you're here to really do and do it. How do we balance that? Because you alluded to, you have a stand, the same to Jill. I think that's what Zula has also said. But how do we, encourage some of our professionals who fear? Mimi nikiambiwa ni fire na niambie, oh, I fire you. You just move on and fire because you can't take the cost of being fired. Or you told uko kwa kampu gani wewe, you have to declare your stand. You'd rather be in where you know it's not the right place because you feel you can't handle the cost of making that decision. How do you navigate that?
I think kama wewe ni mtu wa kuambiwa fire na una fire, hata wewe pia siku moja utafanya nini?
You'll be fired.
Yes, to start with. So the most important thing for an HR is, as Jill said, do the right thing. You'd rather be sacrificed for doing the right thing because in the end of the day, truth will prevail. And that's where policies come in. And I said, if you're in an environment where you don't have comprehensive policies, please try your best and push for those policies. One of the fundamental conditions for you to succeed in HR is to have the ear of the CEO. Yeah. If you don't have the ear of CEO in HR, then you are going nowhere. And that's why I'm also mad at this public sector thing of saying that HR people should report to, I don't know what, corporate, something like that. For me, that is misguided. And you'll start seeing the consequences as time goes. So the first thing is have the ear of the CEO and give credible advice to the CEO. I look at HR as playing about 4 significant roles. One of the roles is admin expert, HR admin expert, perfect your admin expertiser, and make the organization effective for that. Then the next thing is employee advocate. You basically an employee advocate. Although now for me, I think that is overtaken by events and replaced by what I can call a business advocate. So that you're not just being paranoid and saying, this is what the law says, or look at both what the employee wants and what the business wants, and stand in the middle. Protect the business, not the employer, not the employee. Yeah. The other thing is about change. You'll always be the driver of change in many aspects. And that's where now the positive politics come in, what Grace is talking about.
Yes.
You must be able to drive change. You have to be skillful and brave for you to achieve what you want to do. And the last thing in HR could be about strategy. Yeah.
Yep.
You cannot just be an admin, a transactional person. You must be a transformative person. So whatever you do, what are the implications for the business today, tomorrow, the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, to that extent? So if you do all these things well, then you earn the respect and trust of the organization. And even if you don't earn the respect, you have the ability to make the right decisions, to stand firm and say, this is what I believe is right. Don't fear to be sacrificed. We have been sacrificed, and here we are. Every time we are sacrificed, we emerged stronger. Yeah. And we learned so many lessons from that sacrifice. But at the end of the day, also, I've seen so many instances where people also come to you and tell you, we mistook your intentions, we mistook your decisions, but right now we understand what you meant. So you'll make decisions and not everybody will agree with them. But if you believe that the right decisions, then you must stand with them. You must defend them empirically, provide facts, and ensure that when it comes to the time to be counted, or the time to be evaluated, or the time to be judged, you'll be judged well. I think the most difficult thing is once we know what to do, once we have honed our skills in those 4 areas, admin, change management, business advocacy, and strategy, how now do we deploy that to the business?
Yes.
You have to be skillful in the way you deploy your competencies. Yeah, you have to be skillful. You have to be assertive. Jill has talked about assertiveness very well. Yeah, you have to be pro-people, empathetic, emotionally intelligent, so that even when you are stepping on somebody's shoes, they do not know you're actually doing what? You're stepping on their shoes. Yeah. You always must strive to be relevant, because when things change, you should be the first people to demonstrate that this is a change that all of us should embrace, and this is the direction that we should take. Don't ever sit back and start defending the employer or the employee based on this is what the law says. I've always said laws are there, but as skillful HR practitioners, we can always go around the laws and get what we want to do without infringing the rights and the dignity of employees. You have to be business oriented. Talk the business language. If you don't know what the business does, what ticks, what makes it perform, then you just remain at the transactional level, and that is it. Yeah, you must be very commercially aware that when you rise to speak, you can convince people without struggling. You can be able to make people understand that we must do this for this business. One of the key things that I keep reminding employees that they're the biggest stakeholders in any business. Yeah, because employees draw a salary from a business every month, whether it makes profit or not. A shareholder waits until the end of the year to be told whether there's a dividend.
Get anything.
So if a business goes down, who is the loser?
Yeah. Yes.
It's the employee. So you defend that business as your own. And the HR must take a lead in showing the people that this is the reality of doing business. If you are there, you are actually doing your own business. You are not doing the employer's business. If you don't have that kind of influence, then it is very difficult for you to navigate toxic environments. You must have, I mean, people must always be waiting. Wacha tungoje HR atasema nini. You know, when there is doubt, you must always step forward and provide direction, reasoned direction, not emotional direction. And I think it is quite possible, because the other advantage now, as opposed to when we started HR, people are also very informed. Yeah, people are informed, and they can be able to tell right from wrong. We used to work in environments in those days where most of the factory workers were ignorant. Yeah, they will not understand things the way the current generation understands. If you provide information to employees well, you are sure that you'll get cooperation. They will follow you. You'll do the right for the organization. The organization will prosper. You'll give them a value proposition, and eventually, that's when you lay a ground that as a HR person, you can be given higher responsibility. Asante.
Yes, Paul, I'm trying to mute someone. Sorry, I hope I'm not distracting you. Yes, but we hear you loud and clear.
Yes.
Dealing with responsibilities, you know, being bored, having the interest of your employer first. I mean, how many lessons haven't we picked from this session? And thank you, Paul, for that. I will bring you back on something that you have mentioned, and I think it's of essence that we hear more from you. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me just read some of the messages. I don't know, there's someone I'm trying to mute, but I think I'll have to remove them now. Richie, can you spotlight the person and then we see what you can do? Magoma. Yes. So let me read what Sarah has just written here. I'm so encouraged today by this topic and sharing. Yeah. Can you imagine for the last 13 years working as an HR? Yeah, let me pick it a bit, it's disappearing. I don't know why it's going. Let me just put it. So working as an HR, I was summoned to a disciplinary meeting after being issued with a show cause letter. Well, that reminds me of Nzula's case. You being brought someone to orient, clueless. And yet I'm the HR manager. Talk of toxic workplace. It's really true. I really hope 13 years later, you finally get to hear these things. You're not alone, by the way, as you can see here, Sarah. Tuko wengi, and we are navigating. So Mweni, learning from informal sources, that is a fully hatched. This is very true. Again, the story of the strike, that's an informal kind of learning. Uta learn while under fire. To get rid of you by all means, including hiring a hitman or assassins to snap off your life as well, as long as you are eliminated from the equation for becoming a thorn in their plans. Yes, I'm telling you, sometimes, someone used the word kuna watu tu, they will, wanautiaji, for the lack of a better word, they will hunt you as long as you seem to be a kikwazo. And these ones are there, of course, in even the organizations we work with. Kuna wale watu, they will do what it takes for them to get the interest first. I think that was in relation to something that was said earlier by the panelists. Now, Purity, umeandika a long assertion here. I'll read it very fast. I'm in the middle of the storm. Yeah, it's the right time. This session has just come the right time. 5 years ago, my boss and his supervisor working relations went south. I don't know which South is that. This is South Africa. Things went bad. My boss' coping mechanism was she refused to work. She was basically doing nothing for 5 good years. So his supervisor resorted to assigning me work directly. For now, recently my boss has been hostile to me. She has set my colleagues and juniors against me. She has set a tone that I am the reason why she has a bad relationship with her boss, yet it is commonly knowledge that she is the one who would not take up work from our boss until her supervisor gave up. Recently, she called a meeting and developed a new structure which seemed to elevate my juniors over me. Well, look at this. My juniors have taken cue and show total disrespect to me. She hasn't assigned me any work for the last 3 months. I feel I worked hard and my rewards is a bouquet of thorns instead of a bouquet of roses. My cue, I kept her in the loop through, and she kept cheering, please help. Yes, this is really in the middle of the storm. Zula, pick that one. You will say something about it. It's from Purity Nzuki. Henry Mwangi, good to see you. Henry, people who do not understand their personality traits fall into being toxic. I agree completely. And that's why I think most of the panelists also assert that it's important that ujiite kamkutano. Yeah. Zula has mentioned something critical on self-regulation, which is a critical function of emotional intelligence and self-awareness. That's very true. Being in an environment where team calling itself founders fearlessly say, tutaona how long atakaa hapa. That must be how long atakaa hapa. Kwani yeye ni nani? Ajui sisi ni founders. And you are the HR. I feel you. How many people relate with that? Working for private companies. How do you deal with that one? Okay, when you are new and enthusiastic, guys entering roles, and you want to try something different, unasikia that you can try new thing, and see whether they will like it. But things are not done that way. Okay, I'm telling you, people are very, and I can go and on. I'm looking for the questions right here as people are sharing their insights. You can see what people are experiencing in terms of toxicity and toughness. Yes, maybe Nzula, you can say something about that, and I'll bring Jill on something I want to explore a bit in a few minutes. Grace, are you there?
Sorry, it's Saturday, so I'm really enjoying sitting here on this couch with my blanketi and having listening to this conversation.
Na nikubaridi, you add on top, eh?
Na kuna baridi bwana, so
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so for Nzuki, was it Nzuki? What was her name?
Yes, it's Nzuki. Let me pick the name again. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So for Nzuki, I think the first thing that you need to recognize is the fact that you are your boss's boss used you. The fact that you kept your boss in copy does not necessarily count. That is, you ulichezewa politics and they played rough. That is number one. So you need to recognize that you are used. And I'm not saying this so that you can feel bad. I am saying this so that you can unpack whatever is going on within yourself, right? So one, you are used by your boss against to do something for continuity. I know you did it in good faith. I know you did not really want to be caught up in between, but here you are caught up in between. So number two, the current, your boss feels like you're a threat. And that is why now that she's back to taking her power, you being a threat, you're somebody she really does not want to build. We said this is a candid conversation. So we lay it as it is. So your boss feels like you're a threat to her, and therefore she's likely going to fight you. So what can you do? Number one, you need to decide, do you really want to stay in that organization? Number one, because from here on, so long as you're working under your boss, I can tell you it's going to be rough. Because I have laid it out, you are used, you're a threat, and you are used to being relevant, and here you are, you're no longer relevant, you're not getting that room. So the first thing you need to do is decide whether you really want to stay in that organization. Once you have made that decision, then you can figure out what else you want to do. If you choose to stay in that organization, how resilient are you? How will you? Because if you choose to stay, just know that you also have to play the political or whatever environment. So you have to figure out how you can move without really people knowing that you're moving in this situation. Now, the other thing that if you choose to stay, you must be able to take care of your mental health. Because imagine it's 3 months and you're already feeling like this. Your boss did not work for 5 years. So just worst case scenario, you're not given an assignment for the next 2 years. What will you do with yourself? Now, if it's, again, an organization you don't want to quit, I would suggest you divert your energy to something like development. If you have really not done your CHRP, go to class. Take your CHRP classes now, something to keep you busy and occupied so that you don't really necessarily focus on what's happening. My personal advice would be, please look for Jay's CV. I can see him here. Get your CV done, apply for jobs, and get out of that organization as soon as you can, because it's going to stall your professional growth. It is going to stall your personal development. But I'm not saying you quit before you get another job. What I'm saying is start looking for a job. Start preparing yourself for the next level. And who knows, by the work that you've done for 5 years, it could be an excellent job. Maybe it's time you apply for the next level job. Now you become your boss's boss. The world is your oyster. So take a leap of faith and look for jobs, and something will give eventually. So while you're looking for jobs, make sure you also put that energy somewhere else, and then you're likely to thrive. I think that's what I would say. I don't know whether Jill has anything to add.
Thank you very much, Grace. I agree with you. Jill, you want to add something?
Yeah, for me, I've been on both sides. And for me, I don't claim to be saint. So there's a time I reacted to a similar manner that your boss is acting. What you need to realize, if your boss is choosing to play politics with you and not fire this person, in as much as you might say that she doesn't have value, they actually know the value of this person and they're not willing to lose them. So the moment she decides to stand in her position, you'll be the easiest person to cut out. What I usually tell people, do not take salary rises without a title. If your boss is head of HR and you are HRO and you are getting side jobs to do her work and you're not getting paid for it, you're not getting the title for it, just know it's politics. Do not agree to be used. And Grace has put it very, very well. And this lady is just acting out of her own frustration. The thing that usually happens if you do not come to a place of self-awareness quickly, even on her side, she'll continue in that loop of cycles and they will continue to be playing politics with her even until for her she changes. For me, what I'm seeing in all this story is your bosses are the institutors and executors of the toxicity. You people do not have anything against yourselves. And the moment as HR professionals, we get to a place where we say, I will have your back. I have never seen this issue with accountants, even when it comes to graft. There is a graft. You will have to get an external auditor and get someone from ESCC to be able to find out what accountants do. For HR professionals, we need to get to a place where even if your boss wants to use you for politics, mnakuwa na meeting yenu we na your boss mna agree vile kutaenda. And the best option, me I usually tell HRs, have your backup plans. Mbona hatuna side hustles? We are the only teams that do not have our own businesses. Kuwa na ka side hustle. Have your life bangered apart from just work. Have another thing that you do that is not just work. I'm not saying still employer's time, but kuwa na side hustle. Have a social life. Because you find that when you invest too much is because your time is, your heart and soul and energy is there. And I've said the top talented people really struggle with toxic cultures because you give so much of yourself. For you to thrive, what Grace has told you is good. Fanya CHRP. And additional to that, anza ka biashara. Start doing things that you enjoy that also bring income. Usikubali kukaa kwa employment without your options. Because when you don't have options, then you become desperate and then you're used. And you can only be bold when you have options where you can stand and say, I can stand on my own. Have your options open. And search for jobs also.
True. Yeah, I think those are solid advices. I don't think, and I'm happy Jay is here because those are the issues Jay deals with all the time. Again, we go back into calling yourself for a real candid conversation in this situation. And so you can be able to make an objective decision for yourself and your career. I like what Jill is saying is if you only have one option and the option is under threat, then your whole entire being is under threat. At that situation, you're likely going to be desperate and act desperate. And when you act desperate, guess what happens? You never get the best. You never negotiate for the best. Neither will you even come on the table thinking you deserve anything. And that starts to hurt you. It's another line you don't want to go to. So it's a wake-up call. I think awareness is the biggest thing to have here, and accept the situation the way it is, because that's the easiest way to get out of it. There are options, fantastic. You've had all the options here, and that's how you can navigate for free. This advice is for free, actually. And it's a really good, solid strategy that you can apply. So if you feel you need further help, you have all the experts here. I know they're open to help you and support you. So you can reach out to us. I want to bring yes.
As we move on, there's a comment on the chat about HR in public sector now reporting to director or GM corporate services.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
My friend and I have had this conversation all week, and we were just wondering, as in HRs, when will you stop? When will you stop with thinking that power will be given to you? When are you going to stop? When? Good people, when? Like, can we stop with the talk and can we just fight for our space? Like, we can't just sit back. You know, who says that a qualified HR person is not the head of that corporate services? Who said it has to be an accountant? Because, by the way, as the SCAC was coming up with that structure, they did not say that GM Corporation Services will be an accountant.
Yeah,
it is not there.
It's true.
They did not say that. They said GM Corporations, corporate services will have the finance, will have the HR, and will have admin. And you can actually go and customize that for yourselves. So exactly at what point was HR locked out to applying for that job as a GM corporate services? Must you be called a HR for you to lead an organization? Come on, people, really. And HR, please, can we learn how to, you know, can we learn how to interpret a P&L? You know why accountants will go into the boardroom and thrive? It's because they will speak business language. Sisi, we want to come and speak what? We gave 5 warning letters. That's what we are bringing. So what? How is that helping or affecting the business?
Yes.
You know, we want to come and be funded for wellness programs. What does that translate into productivity? How is that moving the organization forward? By the HR, that thing of being spoon-fed is over. It is time to fight for your space. And the only way you fight for your space is knowing what you want, speak business language, and apply everything that we talked here today. I can speak about that forever. Back to you, Damari.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a whole long conversation to have, eh? Why are these people on this role? We can't grow. I mean, I think it's about time we really rethought on how to view these things differently. And of course, reskilling is very essential because, well, I'm taught classes of CHRP, Wadao, they are not HRs. You wonder why they're there. And we also keep on complaining as they're scaling up. Food for thought, ladies and gentlemen. How better can it come here? People are saying, session, it wouldn't have come at a better time. And watu wanaandika paragraph mrefu hapa ni kama, Paul and Jill and Grace, you've really touched people with chords which are very, very sensitive. Josephine, metupasha hapa, let's see. I need guidance. Just joined a new company as a HR. Our terms of employment has been changed from open-ended to contract, to a 1-year fixed term. I've already done meetings with the staff to inform them on the changes and also write a memo. I've been asked questions which I've managed to dodge. Yes, that's a red flag in terms of their final dues. My challenge, come in where I'm to do their letters. Welcome to HR. The effective date of the change in terms of employment is 1st. Ilishapita. I have employees who have been here for more than 10 years. Paul, Okwemba, come here. In a minute. How can Josephine approach this?
I think fundamentally, anything that fundamentally changes the terms and conditions of service needs to be renegotiated. And for you to avoid the previous terms, it's more or less like a redundant. So you have to pay off the previous contract for you to start a new contract. Yeah. So that is something that the organization needs to know before it engages, because there, I mean, you're going to engage yourself in a very in a legal war with employees that you'll most probably lose. Yeah. So whoever made the decision is okay. Those are the dynamics of the employment sector, the labor market, changing terms. I mean, all employers have a right to do that, but they must do what? Comply with the procedure. This procedure involves one, it's basically like a redundancy. So you'll have to write to the labor ministry and tell it why the reasons why you want to change the terms and conditions of employment. That's by way of a notice. Then, which will take up 30 days. Then immediately you will engage the employees in a consultative process. Yes. Call them into town halls, discuss, explain, present, seek their views, record everything. And then once you're through that process, then you sit down to design the process and the package. Yeah, I'm sure of course, either the law or the policy provides of what is supposed to be done if in the event of a redundancy, because this falls under redundancy in my way of saying things. So you will have to now communicate formally to the employees and say, following the consultation that we did, this is what we found out. We have reconsidered our strategy and we feel this is the right way to go. Therefore, your terms are going to change and you'll be paid, yeah, your dues in respect to the previous contract, and then you'll assume the new contract. Now, this is where I always come back to the issue of a pension plan. Because employers who have pension plans at least have something to offer employees who are in distress. And it minimizes the grievances that employees will have when such a change comes in. And I always seek encouraging people, please try your best. Even if your employer cannot start a pension plan, at least they do what? They can enroll in an umbrella plan whereby every month they put in something, the employee put in something. And then when it comes to a time like this, employees are not entirely living with nothing. If they can see that the decision is justified, at least they can fall back and say, this employer has given me this, I have this in my pension plan for purposes of continuity. Let me take on the new contract and move on as I look for, consider the future. But it becomes very tough when people have nothing and we're just telling them, move from these terms to the other. Long and short, again, it comes to policies. These are the things that need to be very clear in the policies. That if you want to make fundamental changes, substantial changes in employee contracts, what is the procedure that you have to follow? And you are alive to the issues in the health sector now, where the government is saying, no, you cannot pay. You guys come pick your letters and you're going to be paid 70,000. That is not possible. Yes. It's a CBA, it's negotiated. It is something that the government put ink to paper. Then KPDM put ink to paper. They have to sit down, yeah, through the labor office, form a tripartite committee, and agree on the way forward. That is basically how legally you would look at it. Anything short of that is subjecting yourself to the risk of litigation.
Oh, thanks very much, Paul. I think that's sufficient advice on that. And I want to say something I've seen Menda wapi, someone adding, when you're making these decisions, I think it's Rebecca, if I remember. So Rebecca also, I mean, I want to read this so people have different strategies and styles. And before I even read what Rebecca said, I think the part of communication, like Paul has said, it's where self or personal development comes in, because knowing how to deal with different situations, context, requires different ways of responding and engagement. And this is a unique one where you will have to use multi-skills, including, is it politics, but I like calling it lobbying skills. So the way you will communicate also will determine the responses you will get. And I like the way Paul has put it in a very diplomatic way. And that is what emotional intelligence comes in. Or now, I think Jill said that the words you use, but you still say what you wanted to say without making someone or provoking someone's emotions to respond in a certain way. It's wisdom, guys, that we have to learn. It's wisdom. So I want to read what I think a style I've seen here, which I think it's a fantastic, interesting, and bold one from, it's written in a small words, Rebecca. I remember there was a time my boss told me to fire some employee and I denied because due process had not been followed. I decided to be tough and told him we have to follow the law. He told me the F word, the law, and I told him if we do not follow the due process and the due procedure and process, the law will F word the company. I like that. I like that level of boldness. Since that day, we have to always come into agreement when it comes to employee separation. Yes, Angini, you really have to step up your confidence and engage at par with your bosses. I like that kind of boldness. Mpaka you tell them you have to set some precedents moving forward. So there are really many questions. I want to take this one and probably any of you can pick it from Josephine. I just joined a company. I think this one I picked is the one you are answering to. So we have great comments. So ladies and gentlemen, we've coming to actually our top of the hour, 2 minutes before we close this. What have you learned? Maybe you can just put in the chat in terms of a word or statement. Umesoma nini leo that you will go home with, you will go apply or tell a friend or tell your colleague so that we can help each other in navigating these issues that we face every day in our work. And anyway, we have to work. Just that we have to make our workplaces more enabling for us to succeed, our colleagues and our company to succeed. I want to pick closing remarks from each of our great panelists. Don't you agree, guys? We need to give them some good emojis. Like me, I was taking notes. I have a kitab, you should see me here taking notes. We need to appreciate them. Where are the emojis? Like my friend Richard, I can see he always says, you have to give people good flavors, good vibes. So yes, parting shot, Jill.
I've really learned quite a bit. And one of the things that I usually tell Grace, I admire her quite a bit. As HR professionals, we really need to start just giving people their flowers. You see, for me, I have people that are above me that I admire. There are people who are besides me that I admire. And just sitting in this panel with Grace is such a milestone. So I'm very inspired in that, using tactical approaches to dealing with conflict. For me, I'm more combative. And self-awareness tells me to always fight for myself. So for me, I usually tell HR professionals, do not be afraid to stand up for your rights. You see, it is a matter of you just deciding and being intentional about having your own agency. Nobody else is afraid to stand up for their budgets, including finance, marketing people. Everyone stands up for themselves in all settings at the workplace. So it's good for us to also start standing up for ourselves. Something that is very key is also understanding financial metrics, because organizations are run with money. If you do not understand the psychology of money, the flow of money, how money is used, remove the terminologies of balance sheet, profit and loss. Those ones are terminologies, but you really need to understand how money flows in organizations and what value you will bring to the table. For me, I chose quality systems because I do not like numbers so much. Pick something that you can resonate with. Pick something to do with marketing, product development, social media. Pick something that actually has financial return on investment for a company and run with it. What has really helped me now running my business is because I was not a traditional HR. So I got to interact with quality, I got to interact with finance, and running my company has been very, very smooth, to be honest. So as HR professionals, let's not put ourselves in boxes. Let us not put ourselves in a cocoon where we are going to do labor laws and policies and procedures only. Let us have value that understands the psychology of money. And there is always a how far is too far. When it is too far, quit. It does not matter what people say, 10 year, what, just quit. If it was quitting was a bad thing, I would not be a HR director. I've been quitting once every 2 years because I've been working for very tough people. So if kama unaona kitu imekataa, usiforce. It's like a marriage. If it's not working na unapigwa na uko na stress, just quit. The worst that can happen is you will tarmac and then you will get another job. Do not be afraid to quit when things go too far, because your mental health is sacrosanct. Do not die because of work. Do not die because of a boss. Do not get high blood pressure, hypertension, hata medical hujapatiwa, mnatumia NHIF. So do not agree for an employer to break you down so much that you're not even able to operate your own life. Your family suffers. You're a toxic mom. You're a toxic spouse because of work. It is never that serious. And trust me, your employer does not go to their house and start sleeping and thinking, oh, Jill Leo ako na stress. They do not think about you. You go, show your line, do the best that you can during working hours. Clock out, go and have your own life after work. So for HR professionals tuanze mabiashara, let us understand life exists outside work, and let us embrace the changes that come, because you might be forced to be declared return. And the companies right now globally are going through downturns. So employers will become toxic because the money is not there to run companies. So we need also to be cognizant of that. Sometimes toxicity is as a result of market forces. So we need to understand the psychology of money, what is happening beyond just HR. Ni hayo tu, asanteni sana.
Thank you, Jill. Hey, you deserve some more flowers. Yeah, that's from Bensuda. I learned that nickname today, and I think listening to Jill, we really need to have some skill. I'm not going to say it, but boldness. Yeah, and you served it really candidly. I like that. Thanks very much. You brought, real experience on the conversation, guys. I can see going by the chat, people have picked a lot of lessons from this engagement. It's an honor to have you. And I think we should have you more talking to HR from that side of Mukubwa. Really an honor. Thanks very much for the parting shot. Grace Nzula.
Yes, Jill has always been whatever of fresh air. I met Jill when she was fighting those battles at some point, but
yes.
Tumetoka mbali mami. Anyway, we were those people
she
who
really
were
has
very
a
well
story.
known. Yeah. We were very known in Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Anyway, story for another day. So I'm very proud of you, Jill. I'm really happy that you actually even here and sharing. And that, by the great Jill, the last 1 year, I think you have really grown. In all honesty, you have between Naivasha was 2021 or 2022, 2022, and now you're a totally different person. So I'm really, really proud of you, and I'm happy to see you grow. And I am here cheering you, and you can count on my support. Anyway, I'm here to do my parting shot. Now, after this has spoken, what exactly am I supposed to say? Right. I think the one thing that we need to do is learn, I think the basics, and that's part of the HR professionals. We need to learn what HR is. Okay? And we need to understand it is a beautiful time to be in HR. There has never been a better time than now to be in HR. And for that, it is time to be bold. It is time to build on value. It is time to build on our skills. It's time to be out there and sharing what we know, because we have been driving institutions. At this point in time, HR is being listened to. in most organizations. So if you have an organization that has even a slight of opportunity that can listen to you, please be bold enough, compile your presentations, compile your data, compile everything, and then be bold enough to share it. You may not get the answers that you're looking for, but you will always move a step ahead. And sometimes you just need to be consistent and you will get the answers you're looking for. So I think it's a beautiful time to be HR. Challenges are part of life. Challenges are part of life. Even the richest of people that you know, even Elon Musk, they face challenges. Let's embrace challenges. Take care of yourself. I mean, like Jill has said, there is life outside of work. You know, I am one person who believes in work-life integration. I am telling you, I will go for a trip for work. The day people are coming back, I am not coming back. I have to go and sightsee. I have to go and see something, and that means sometimes I have to whatever on my account. And it is okay because you are not just about work. You are about other things. And sometimes this exposure, you know, sometimes you go out there, you're trying to you leave the house on a Saturday like today. It's 12 o'clock. Go and walk around Safari Walk in National Park. Just go for a walk there. Carry your KFC. Have a moment. And you will just realize by the time you come back on Monday, you actually have an idea to approach your boss who denied you, said no to a project you're trying to implement. So take care of yourself. Challenges are part of life. Toxic environment, be sure that you can hack whatever it is that you're coming up to, and then let's embrace the opportunities that we get. Let's mambo yenu ya kushinda mkisema sijui you are reporting to accounting, sijui accountants are listened to. What are we fighting about? Everyone is staying on their lane. Can you also stay on yours and take lead on yours? That is my challenge to you. Don't lead from behind. Take lead. You know, on HR, even if you're reporting to that accountant, let that accountant say, I cannot make that decision without HR. That is you being part of the decision making. It doesn't go at everyone will be like, where you know. Let them start remembering that you're not at work on that day, and therefore that meeting will not take place because you're not there. And you can only do that if you invest in your competency. I say competence powers confidence. So build on your competence and your confidence will come. Thank you very much, Damaris, for having me. Hiya, Masai Maisha. Sawa.
Yeah. And really, I think we really can't get tired of listening to you. That's why we are still all here listening. And that's very true. Competence will always power your confidence. And I like that also Jill said, plow your lane, stick to your lane, do your best, make it the best you can have. So you fuel it until it doesn't matter where you sit in that boardroom on the table. The moment you start speaking your wisdom, the table will always stand because you're the best at what you do. And I think that's a really good call for all of us from Grace. Thanks very much for, it's an honor having you. Yeah? You should see how I'm struggling to moderate the moderator of choice. But really blessed, my friend. Thank you very much to come on board and share your experience with the fellow HR. We look forward to having you in the next forums as well. Paul Okwemba.
Thank you. I think briefly, we have to proactively manage toxicity and use it as a springboard for our own personal growth. Yeah. So let us not wish away toxicity because it gives us an opportunity to learn and excel.
Yes.
In the HR context, I'd like to look at it in terms of how do you grow within these toxic environments. And I want to encourage people first to be technically apt. You must be very competent in HR itself for a start, because that's when you start earning your respect. Yeah. Then the next thing, because your competence does not really matter if you cannot use it to deliver a result. So you must build exceptional soft skills that can enable you to negotiate, to justify, to convince, to assert yourself, and basically do what Grace called build your space, develop your space. Yeah, focus on your mission. Then beyond those two, technical and soft, then there's this conceptual. How do you align your HR knowledge to the business requirements? Yeah, that's where you find that when you have proven yourself in that area, no decision will be taken in an organization before it passes through your desk, even if it does not involve people. I've been lucky to work with the organizations that really respect HR input, and I've been given so many assignments. And I think it comes with a risk, because if you don't deliver, then you're risking your career. But one thing that gave me a lot of encouragement is Jack Welch, the famous Jack Welch. In his stories, he said, for him to transform General Electric, he surrounded himself with HR people. And Jack Welch believed that the people who are supposed to be heading organizations are HR people. Yeah. There is a book that I read. I think I've read it 3 times. Anytime I have a new assignment, I go read it. It's called Good to Great. A very simple book. If anybody can read that book, it can guide you on how you can put your input in transforming an organization and therefore entrenching your profile as a career HR. Then there is the issue of building additional skills, so that anytime there's a conversation within the organization, you are relevant. I like what Jill is talking about, quality management systems. Yeah. I have myself, I think sometime as one of our strategies, we did what we call integrated management system. And this was a Coca-Cola driven thing across all the bottlers. In 2007, I was the HR manager of East and Central Africa region, 27 countries, because I spearheaded the implementation of an integrated management system comprising quality, safety, environment, and all that. And think from that knowledge, you develop a deep understanding of how business run and how they're supposed to run, and you keep applying it. Then you must be a person who is very diplomatic, empathetic, and make sure that people look up to you. And when people come to you, you stand with them and give them the right advice. Finally, I believe, if I look at myself, where I am, I'm sitting in the office I sit because of demonstrating some unique abilities in organizational transformation. I've been sent to assignment projects, startups, be it in Ethiopia, in Zambia, Malawi, Tanzania, very difficult, everything. I mean, you just reach a place where the organization believes if there's a HR problem in any country, the person to send is so and so. And when I was appointed to this position, everybody said, this organization has never put a HR person in CEO position, but I've managed to prove them wrong, because using the same skills, I have been able in the last 15 months to build a very, very high performing team. If you look at the results of the company and everything, the objectives that were set, everything is running right. And I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just used my same skills, bringing people together, managing those toxicities, the politics, making people who have never sat together to discuss something to discuss and agree, and form a team that works and collaborates day in, day out, has enabled me to get the results that are required. So there are opportunities for HR people. As Grace says, there are opportunities for HR people to navigate this space, to rise up and, self-actualize within this profession. Asante.
Well, I really like the way you've packaged your message straight from being able, and we've been advised this virtually by everyone in the panel, that we need to build exceptional skills. We need to also build our soft skills. I don't know why we call them soft skills anyway. For me, I refer to them as essential skills. How to navigate challenges of technical expertise is through essential skills. And you've been told the name of the book, for those who are asking, is Good to Great. It's a book that Paul says whenever he gets a new challenge as a role, he really goes back and reads a book, good to great. And I love something that Paul has said on the parting shot, that build unique skills for yourself that can help solve unique challenges in your organization. And that's a very easy way to be able to be on top of mind for most of the people, especially the top executives. When they face this unique challenge, you're the person who pops in their head, and therefore there's no way they can solve without you being in the equation. And that gives you a leverage. That reminds me about power. If you've read about power, and there are many forms of power, by the way, every time you face a challenge, especially in the people context, it's also good to ask yourself what powers you have at that point. And the table can shift in relation to all the powers you have. There is a power called the expert power. If you're the best in the room, there is some sense of respect and reputation people will give you for that. And I think that comes from Zula also telling us, go do that CHRP when you have this time, you really have less tasks. Build your competence such that people know you are the person to go when it comes to this issue. Not always about the routine issues. We talk about HR because, I mean, that's where everybody is. Elevate yourself for some unique skills. And for that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really happy you logged in. I've seen a list of lessons, amazing, from many people, what they are picked from this webinar, amazing, and time has gone. What way to end this. I'm really overwhelmed by the number of participants who showed up here and online. Some didn't even get to the Zoom. I know people like Zoom, but thanks very much for showing up for this session. I mean, like I said, I was learning, and what I can summarize my lesson is we need to trust ourselves first. It doesn't matter what role we are in, at what level. You're there because you can do something. We need to trust ourselves. And trusting ourselves means you also trust the skills we have and the reasons why we are there. And that trust will probably make us be a little bit bold and confident in the way we approach the situations, and we confront the issues and the people in the equation as well. Continuous learning, I'm not going to go back there because I've spoken that. It has been added by Paul as well. Build your unique competencies, and also learn to deal with the noise, which is always there. By the way, the noise will always be there. There will be all this, it has been called another name by someone. This kelele will always be there. Some is very toxic. Some are coming for you. They will always be there. But you need to learn to deal with them. We can't avoid leaving that statement without telling you, go learn a little bit about how to manage with emotional intelligence. What areas, I mean, be aware of these things, how to regulate yourself, how to perceive others before you respond. It helps a lot, because in managing other people, you really can't do it very well without emotional intelligence. The other thing I've learned is put your organization interest first before yours. Can somebody say amen? I know that's really hard, but we need to really think first, the big picture. And I think the benefits always sort of falls into place once we do that. And once it enables us, I think it's one of the best ways to become objective when you're making decisions, when you put yourself out of the picture as well. Then be bold. I think Jill is the person who has manifested this on how we can actually be bold and plow our own line. I really can't emphasize that more. And talk business language. That is short. I mean, HR have been accused of that. It's about time. We really need to stop this complaining here. Who is not doing HR is in our space. I mean, they understand the business language. They understand the commercial language. That's why the executives cannot do without them. How can we get there by it's a demand thing, yeah? So that people will say, we really need so-and-so to be here. How do we get ourselves there? There's a lot of things we have to do, and stop the complaint and go what you're supposed to do for us to be there. What a day. I'm really excited, guys. Thanks very much. It's a time to part short right here until the next session, which comes on Saturday. I want to really recognize all of you, but I can't read all your names, but you can wave right there as you say goodbye, and leave a good statement at the chat for all of us. From all corners of Blue Concepts Africa, people supporting me back there. Nimeshukuru sana for all our panelists, Paul, Jill, Grace, and the active participants here wamejaza chat. This has been good. Thanks very much. Pick the lessons. That's the most important thing. Until next time, I really thank you from Blue Concepts Africa team and myself, and ciao. God bless you. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Yes, by the way, now you're allowed to unmute and say something at this point.
Thank you, Damaris and the
Thank you,
panel.
Kama.
Thanks
Yeah,
very
for the
much.
explanation.
There's one
Yeah.
Caroline Kimathi who has been on the video. Me, I respect people who put themselves on the video because it's not easy. That's a measure of confidence, by the way. Next time, try to. Yes, JCVs. Glad to see you. Did I see Paul Gugi somewhere? Yeah. Nitakutafuta sijui kwa page 3 ama page gani. Yes, Gagalo, great to have you. Yeah. My good friend, Mathangani Muya, by the way, good, and congratulations for the nomination for something, yeah? Yeah, I saw that. I hope you break the news, and we're really happy for that. You want to say something
Thank
before
you.
people go?
Well, just to thank the panelists, and these are great learning sessions. Let people know that you need courage, you need to stand out, speak your facts, state what it is you feel is offensive in toxic environments, and state clearly what you want to see happen, what you expect. To help a lot in setting your expectations and how you like to be treated. Thank you.
Absolutely. Very well said. Thanks very much, Muya. And thanks for being on board in this session. I've seen you in the chat also sharing very good insights. Shukran kabisa. Yes. There's a lot coming in the chat. I hope hakuna maswali, but we'll answer them offline. So thanks very much. People asking for the link for next Saturday. We will share just the same way we've shared for this one on platforms for you to join. Thanks, Paul Gugi. I see you've left great insights here for people and your lessons you take home. Thanks very much. And for the rest of the people online, have a great weekend and see you hopefully next Saturday, same time. Have a good afternoon.